Welcome to Curse Breakers, where we leverage astrology to empower you. I'm Jacki Smith, and I'm here with my co-host and chief astrologer, Storm Sestavani. This show is sponsored by Coventry Creations, where they have magical solutions for your everyday issues. So go grab your magical candles at coventrycreations.com. Hey, Storm.
Hey, what's up?
Life. It's been twisty, turny, hellacious a little bit lately.
It's been interesting to say the least. One thing I want to do, Jacki, right at the onset is, last week we did not have an episode because, sometimes happens.
Right.
And
sometimes elections happen.
And we had some communication problems, so we didn't have an extra one already in the bank,
right.
To post because we were having recording issues the following week. What I want to remind people is that we have a calendar, right?
Yes, we have a calendar.
And Jacki, how do they subscribe to that calendar?
There is a link at the on the show notes wherever you're listening to the show. There's a link to our Google Calendar that has the astrology for every day, as well as what the curse you can break and the candle that goes with.
Yeah. So, and it also includes the stone. So I noticed that I had the stone in there the other day.
Yeah, I started putting the stone in there. So Storm builds the astrology. I build the posts.
Right. So if we happen to miss a show, because sometimes stuff just happens, and Jacki and I are old.
Speak for yourself, sir.
Well, you're older than me.
Oh, you know what? Yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah. I was talking about when I started Coventry Creations, which was in 1992, and the gal sitting across from me on the couch said, "Oh my God, before I was born." I'm like, throat punch.
Yeah. I was going through some of our past, because I have a whole drive, Jacki, of past show notes going back many, many, many years.
Like a decade or more?
Yeah. And I remember a show in which we were doing a group show with a bunch of different co-hosts and stuff like that. And I remember that you all threw me a party from when I moved from the Knight of Wands to the King of Wands. That's how long we've been doing this, Jacki.
My goodness. Oh, I don't, you know what? Maybe I am old because I don't remember that. You're going to have to send me some links. But we've been doing podcasts together, AKA radio-ish.
Since 2009.
So that's a long time. That's like 15 years. 15 years.
15 years. We'll have to get a graphic.
I know.
15 years together.
15 years of confusing their listeners.
Yes. Speaking of confusion, Mercury is going retrograde on November the 20th. And I wanted to take a whole episode actually for us to discuss this, because this is a very interesting Mercury retrograde because it happens in one sign, which is Sagittarius. And
because don't they usually ping pong?
They usually ping pong. Usually it will go back into another sign and then move back, and it's all over the place. And,
okay.
This time it stays in Sagittarius the whole time. In fact, Mercury will be in Sagittarius, Jacki, until the beginning of January. Now, remember, it usually goes through a sign in 3 weeks.
Oh, but it's rolling back.
Yeah. So
the window shade is rolling back up.
It's going to be in Sagittarius for a whole 2 months. Okay. So this is a lot of time, and Sagittarius is the sign that has to do with higher education, our beliefs, the way that we envision the future, our goals, our ambitions in many ways. It also has a lot to do with travel, philosophy, our personal belief issues. So, this is a whole gambit, and I'm finding it interesting that it's happening right now.
I always see Sagittarius as someone who can see future possibilities brighter than anyone else. And sometimes that's where they live. But if I think about that Sagittarius symbol of drawing back the bow.
Right.
So they're always aiming for the future rather than a lot of times Sagittarians that are challenged, like having challenges, whatever, they forget that they're in today.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that there is a mythic figure that I associate with Sagittarius, which is Bellerophon. And Bellerophon,
God bless you.
I know,
What?
Bellerophon. He was the guy that was riding up, the winged horse and was trying to get to Olympus on the winged horse. And then the gods just said, nope, not happening, and stung down a bee in it. He fell down to the earth. And one of the things that I feel that represents in regards to Sagittarius is that Sagittarius is often wants to be the avatar of something. It wants to be the voice of something higher or something grand or something divine. And then when the real world, because the opposite element in the Jungian sense of the word, Jacki, the opposite element of fire is earth. So it is that whole reality perspective of the real world, and how do you take all of those grand, lofty, theatrical ideals and merge that into something usable, which is something that's very difficult for Sagittarius, which is why they need a staff. I mean, Sagittarius comes with wonderful ideas, and then it needs kind of like the Tauruses and the Virgos and the Capricorns to manage them all.
Some days I think I'm Sagittarius.
Some days?
I'm not Sagittarius.
I know you're not. You're a Virgo. You're married to a Sagittarius.
I am married to a Sagittarius. My first marriage was to a Sagittarius.
So is your job to organize crazy?
Well, okay. So with Phoenix, my current husband, and my final husband, it's really interesting because he's got a moon in Capricorn. He kind of organizes my ideas. So I'll say, hey, I'm thinking about this thing. And then he expands it a little bit bigger and starts creating it before I say I really am committed. And I'm like, whoa, roll it back. But I wasn't ready. So he because he's got that earth in his chart, he makes stuff happen in a very interesting way. And
it's interesting that both of your partners, your husband and me, are both fire signs with a Capricorn moon.
Well, I like you guys. So I like that practicality side of both of you, especially in the emotional end of things. So I just think that Phoenix and I are good partners, and he does get driven. He's actually more driven than I am a lot of days. So I find that very interesting.
The moon in Capricorn will definitely has a lot of drive to it, because it is attempting to structure the physical world in a way in which it's manageable, which means you don't have time to sleep. Literally, that means we don't have time to sleep. And the interesting thing that I find with Mercury, which is about to turn retrograde, is I get the feeling as though here that there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be going on over the next 3 weeks in which people are going to be, whether that they're going to be influenced by the news or because, Sagittarius has a lot to do with the future, Jacki. And I know me, I've had to personally, for the last few days, quit looking at the news because the news was giving me a panic attack.
Right. Me too. I had to get back into my life.
Right. And I think that with Mercury being in Sagittarius, that we're going to probably see, it's probably a good time to avoid any form of news or even social media, Jacki, that's, more news driven, which is more like X. Instagram, not so much, a little bit of Facebook, but it's easier to filter in Facebook than it is in X. So, people may want to avoid anything that may trigger them or cause them any form of distress, because ideals and beliefs are going to go off the chains when Mercury goes into Sagittarius.
So, okay, I think that is important because Sagittarius is really big ideas and grand. I mean, very, very grand ideas. There's nothing small or inconsequential about a Sagittarian idea. With it going retrograde in Sagittarius, so that means, okay, Mercury communication, Sagittarius big ideas. What can we expect here?
Right. And if you look at the way even that people are communicating right now, Jacki, it's all this over the top dramatization, this is my belief and it's not budging. And, I've been reading the memes, I think are a little bit funny. But one of the things to also remember, you know what a caduceus is, right?
I know what a caduceus is. Let's describe it for our listeners here.
Okay. Well, what a caduceus is that the god
Caduceus?
Hermes, caduceus, yeah.
Okay. I missed a syllable.
Don't worry about that. I actually YouTubed it because I was like, I'm doing a radio show. I really need to make sure that I know how to pronounce this the right way and I don't speak Greek. So I wanted to know what it was because this is really a iconic symbol. It's the one that Hermes, the god of communication, carries a staff. And in that staff, Jacki, that there's two intertwining snakes that are going up to the top of the staff. Okay, they're intertwined on there. And, even though that it looks like a great stylish accessory, and I'm all about accessories, the caduceus is really loaded with meaning. Those snakes, they're forever intertwined. They represent the dual nature of reality. They represent the dual nature of truth and everything in between. And it also represents that there's a constant flow of transformation. And I find that kind of interesting, because if anything, Hermes, the god, is ambiguous. Because at the end of the day, what is the definite? We've talked about this before. What is the definition of the word truth? And whose is true?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a lot of what we're going to begin to see when Mercury goes retrograde, because retrograde means revisiting all of the things that have happened between now and the last retrograde, which happened during the summer. It's about revisiting all of the ideas, all of the things that you think that you believe, all of the plans that you've made. I would not travel with Mercury and Sagittarius. I wouldn't do it. Because Sagittarius has a lot to do with travel on its own, especially long distance travel.
Okay, so it's going to be retrograde till when?
It's going to be retrograde until December the 5th.
So maybe no travel for Thanksgiving. So it goes retrograde on the 20...
Which I think is the day before Thanksgiving.
I thought it was the 25th.
Let me look.
Because that's the day somebody was supposed to have been sentenced.
The 25th is on a Monday. The 28th is actually Thanksgiving.
Right.
So this is going to go... Yeah, you may want to stay home for Thanksgiving, too.
Or else you're going to get planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, planes, trains, and automobiles. I call it twist, two turns in the truth.
Yes.
Twist,
say
turns,
that again.
in the
Twist, turns, and the truth. That is not easy to say. It might be easy to type.
Not at all. So, of course, one of the things that people need to remember is that all of the traditional Mercury retrograde stuff, and we release the whole list every time Mercury goes retrograde, so follow all our socials because they will be up there. But, avoid making a major decision. Expect detours, delays.
There's something that people forget to talk about with Mercury.
What's that?
Mercury is also the trickster. So, which reminds me of Elegua or Elegba in African traditional religions.
Well, he's a Mercury figure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're very syncretic. And so when it's Mercury's in retrograde, when the trickster is in retrograde, the tricks are big, fat, smack you in the back of the head lessons.
Right.
Or break your kneecap when you trip lessons. But it's also a lesson.
It's a lesson. And the thing I think that people need to know and recognize, Jacki, is that the way to discover where those lessons are going to come is that the planet is going to be wearing the clothes or the outfit of the sign that it's in. So Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. A lot of people are going to find out information that's going to change their mind about things, or they may begin to view things in a different sort of way than what they have in the past. For example, one of the things that I seen was a lot of memes, Jacki, about, and I on one level, it makes me very, very sad that we have descended to this type of culture. On the other level, I found it very interesting what's going to happen with Mercury retrograde. And one of them there were two. Okay. One of the memes that I found interesting is that the day after the election, a woman's husband went to work and was immediately told that there would be no Christmas bonuses because of them being afraid that tariffs were going to happen in January. So companies were building up their stockpiles rather than anything else. Okay.
Which was, remember, that was not a news report.
That was not a news report, no.
That was a meme.
That was a meme. Now, what I'm talking about is memes. Now, whether they're true or not is sketchy, okay? But I think that it's not whether that they're true. It's the ideas that are being espoused in these memes that I think that we have to take a look at. because they represent something archetypal, that there's a movement that's going on within the collective, which I think is embodied by Mercury in Sagittarius. The other one was a woman who husband voted for one candidate and she voted for another. And she decided, screw it. You decided that my personal autonomy was not important for you. So guess what? I'm gone. I'm history. I'm getting a divorce. So
although I do have 2 specific examples.
You do?
Of that from the 2016 election. They
really
tried. They tried really hard for several years, but as you see, the ideas, the national stage political ideas becoming further and further apart.
Oh, give me the tea, girl. I need the tea.
They could not reconcile. They couldn't. It just was like we're too far apart on this. And what's interesting is both of the men ended up becoming more, they wanted to be out in the woods. They wanted to be away from people. They became more and more extreme with the world is against them. And both of the women became more and more extreme in their feminist ideas.
So you see, that's the polarization of the opposites, which is what that caduceus is all about. So I think that we're going to see a lot more of that, and probably, especially with this moving into holiday seasons. There was a post on one of the news sites, Jackie, that a comment. So this one here is actually a fact. She was not doing Thanksgiving and Christmas with her in-laws because her in-laws voted overwhelmingly in a way. This is where I think that there's a big, huge difference, Jackie, is because social media has made it where it is so easy for us just to go and post whatever our particular impulsive idea of the day is, not really think about what the consequences or whose feelings that we're going to hurt are. And basically the woman, now in the article, Jackie, she says she's going to try to work on her marriage. Okay. She doesn't plan to divorce her husband, but she found it very, very difficult to go and celebrate and accept gifts from people that did not value her bodily autonomy. So that was an issue. And where she got upset about it is that she had logged into Facebook the day after the election and saw her husband posted a post, which it was like, oh my God, we won. Everything's wonderful. Everything's perfect. We can all start, buying eggs again and all this other stuff. And basically what she, it hit her so hard that she asked her husband to remove it. And at the bottom of the article, the things that she stated as she's going to the gym and she's contemplating all these things, she says, and I noticed you didn't remove the Facebook post that I asked you to remove. So it's so easy, Jackie, for everything to become out of the way. Whereas I don't think 20 years ago that this stuff happened.
Well, there was a different, I don't think so. I think I agree with you. I also think there was a different, 20 years ago, there was a different need. So that was in 2014.
No, 20 years ago was 2004.
I'm sorry, 2004. Well, 2004 was going on. We were still reeling from 9/11. We were, as a nation, when did Obama come into office?
2008.
2008. So this was
before Katrina. Yeah.
This was the second term
of George W. Bush.
W. Bush. Yeah, that was, we were thinking about different things, but also there was a huge backlash on the Middle Eastern community in the U.S. They were very afraid for their lives.
Right.
But so there's one thing that I would like to talk about just for a second.
Sure, of course.
On this, the trickster energy, the Sagittarius, Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius.
Right.
There's something that started, which is so damn disturbing.
Tell me.
Like it like makes me want to vomit, is the bros that are emboldened to say things in public. In public. Like there's a true story that a friend of mine went through. These are white good old boys going up to black folks, especially if they're the only one in the room or the only one in the bar, saying the bus for the slaves is going to be at this corner at this time. Make sure you're on it.
I've got no words. I mean,
and then getting screenshots from folks who are getting this in their Facebook Messenger.
Bots, yeah.
Russian bots, but it's coming into there. So then it emboldens people to say this in public,
right?
Or text people. So there are people who are getting literal text on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
So how the heck are they getting the phone number? So this is scary.
Because a lot of times, Jacki, people don't realize what they're doing on social media. And if they have, like, for example, Facebook, if they have Messenger that's on their iPhone, okay, oftentimes that they have your telephone is listed in your Messenger. So you need to go and make sure that it's not there or not visible. Yeah. And a lot of people don't look at these particular settings, when they're downloading an app and posting it up, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to talk to my girlfriend Sally on Messenger. Yeah. They're not thinking about their individual privacy.
Right. Like you're in WhatsApp, you have to have your telephone number in it because that's how it's associated with it.
Absolutely. But what I think is going on here, Jacki, which I don't think, because I did a lot of time thinking about how is it different now than it was in 2004 or even 1974. Well, there was an election in 72, not 74, but in 1972, what is the difference? And I think that the difference, Jacki, is that politics has become a blood sport at this point. It's almost like the Detroit, I don't even know what the team, I think the Lions.
Sports ball. Yes, it's the Lions, and then the Tigers, that's football. The Tigers are baseball, the Pistons are basketball, and the Red Wings are hockey.
So it's like,
P.S., not that I'm into sports ball, but the Lions are very close to.
And with the Detroit Lions, who is their big enemy?
God, I don't know.
Yeah, so they all have an enemy. They all have a team that they hate. It's like the Yankees and the White Sox or Red Sox don't like each other. It's kind of
like Ohio State and Michigan State,
Yeah, that they don't like each other. And it's kind of this extreme, at times playful, but very, very heated antagonism that they do towards each other. And I think that our politics has become that way, because one of the things that I'm seeing right now, Jacki, is that a lot of the people on the left are falling into the same ideas that happened after the election in 2020, in which they're now questioning the results of the election. Do I think every vote should be counted and recounted? Absolutely. Do I think that our first impulse should be to go to conspiracy theories? No. But, it's now nothing can be trusted. I think we have to look at the higher images of what's going on here. What is the myth that's being told? And the myth that's being told is nothing can be trusted. Nothing.
Isn't that the whole point of Sagittarius, Mercury being retrograde in Sagittarius?
Right.
So we're questioning those myths, questioning those higher ideas.
And that's why I went into that, because that's basically what's going to be happening, is that people are going to question their beliefs. They're going to question their ideas. They're going to question their strategies. They're going to question, how do I move forward today, which may be different than what I thought I was going to do in August.
All right. So how do we deal with this?
Carefully. Well, I think that the first thing to do is that, number one, and Jacki, you may be able to describe how to do this more so than I can, because it's more your expertise, but simple grounding exercises to manage stress, I think.
Yeah.
That's one way.
Because stress is that thing, that cortisol thing that keeps us stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it can become, And so if your cortisol pushes you into fight, you can actually get addicted to that. Like you have to have that to move forward in your life.
Right.
So grounding helps clear some of that cortisol, grounding, meditation, etc. But the other thing that I think is really important in, Mercury's communication and Sagittarius' really big ideas is to speak a little slower. When you find yourself revving up, one of the things, so right now is a challenging time for most retailers because people have turned to shopping online rather than in store. And plus with the election, it has frozen people for several weeks. Like, I can't shop, I can't do anything. I just got to see what's going to happen with the election. And then people are still like a little bit frozen after the election. So in talking to customers and talking to my team and talking to staff, we start with, what is the goal for this conversation? So, hey, can we have a sit down? Okay, I just want to let you know my goal for this conversation is that we get clear on what candles we're going to be making over the next month. we get clear on our marketing strategy or what our priorities are. So if you start, I mean, this is a great thing with any conversation. And actually, it was funny because Storm and I, we do this. Hey, I need to talk to you, okay? And then it's like, what about?
Right.
Well, we need to talk about blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes it's like, I just need to talk. I miss our useless conversations. So having that and then going slow. So, because when you talk really fast about things, it's really hard for anyone to really take in what you're saying because it could be really big concepts, but you're dumping. I always talk about this. If I'm describing an idea to you, Storm, I've already thought about this idea 1,000 times and I've crafted it and put it together, and I have all kinds of underpinning stories and et cetera, et cetera. But you don't have all those backstories. You don't understand what in the world I'm talking about. So, but yet I'm ready to download this story to you. And it's like, well, hang on a minute.
Right.
So it's really important to go slow and make sure everyone is caught up with you.
Right. And I think that the other thing that is really important, and it's a little bit different. I will say that for me personally, at the moment, I'm still not in a state where I can do this. I'm hoping that the Mercury retrograde does give me the ability to do this. But it's like viewing challenges to my personal beliefs as opportunities towards growth rather than as a personal attack. In other words, taking a look at what are people's complaints, what are their beliefs, what are their ideas, kind of sorting through that in my head and saying, okay, maybe they may have a point, maybe that there are some issues here in regards to prices that ultimately need to be addressed. I don't believe with the choices that they make, but I can begin to start to look at maybe, I've lived in a world with so much privilege for so long. I need to bring things down to this very, very basic level. And I think that one of the things of doing that is by, journaling is one thing I can do. I can write down my ideas in a very precise way. I can also take other people's ideas, Jacki, and work with them in a journaling capacity. And then kind of, I don't want to say diminish, but kind of neutralize my feeling that this is something that's personal, because I think everybody is taking things personally.
So there's one piece to journaling that I think is really important. Reading back to yourself what you wrote. So when you're journaling, you're still stuck in your head. Now it's going through your body, through your hands, and it's going in there. And sometimes when you read it back to yourself visually, you can go, oh, wait, okay, I see where I'm going. But if it's not helping you gain perspective, then speak it out as if you're telling someone, because when you now hear yourself, when you hear it come out of your mouth and you start to verbally vibrate that, there's something that helps you go, oh, I get it. This is why talk therapy is so effective. And so let's talk about grounding for a second. Now, I'm not going to take everybody through a big old grounding ritual, but there's a couple of things that you can do. Stand up and stamp your feet. Put your hands on your hips and stamp your feet. That's basic body language kind of. And if next time you have a second.
I just had an epiphany.
What?
I think that that's why I feel so much better, Jacki, after I spend 45 minutes on a treadmill.
Exercising is really grounding. It gets you in your body. You can't exercise and not be in your body.
Otherwise, you literally damage yourself,
And then the other thing, like let's say you're in a meeting, and you're like, holy mackerel, I'm like being triggered, and the freight train is going up my spine, and blah, blah, blah. So grabbing onto the edge of the desk and pinching till your fingers are white is grounding. And making sure your feet are flat on the floor and just do that. That's grounding. The other thing that is really grounding is hugging yourself. So, like you got your arms crossed or whatever as you're sitting there listening to somebody with your arms crossed, which is the signal that I refuse to listen to you. So instead, just kind of hug yourself. Like put one hand on the shoulder and one hand, wrapping it around to like your armpit. That's really grounding, to be honest with you. So, and what I do is I will Sometimes I can't do the hand motions, but I'll run my fingers through my aura and say clear. And then I'll hug myself and say, be here.
Right.
So I've been in meetings where I'm like
an octopus hugging yourself.
Well, okay, I'm so triggered and I need to get back in my body. So I kind of like reach around like I'm itching my back and then kind of hug myself a little bit while I'm itching my back and in my mind say, be here. Because sometimes we have to be clandestine in what we're doing.
Right. Let me, just for the sake of playing with this, to give people an example, Jacki, what is one thing that, if you're going through this type of a circumstance, is there anything in particular that triggers you? Is there something that happens that triggers you?
Yes, I went through this last night. I'm telling you my vulnerability, and you're telling me how I'm getting it wrong.
Oh, you're getting your vulnerability wrong?
Yeah. So I'm telling you what's going on with me and how I'm scared, and I have to take different actions. And somebody gets upset at me because I haven't reached out to them or worked with them, or how come you blah, 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 blah. So no matter what the response is, I have gotten it wrong in some way. I am at fault in some way. And I clam up. Okay, we're not communicating anymore. I'll stop. So the vulnerability is you're telling somebody some bad news or something about you that they're not, you're telling somebody something they're not going to like. And I have personally started a practice where someone is telling me something very vulnerable. I thank them for sharing with me. I don't say I'm sorry. I don't say, oh my God, that's really hard. I just thank them. Thank you for sharing that with me. So what you shared with me is really important.
Right.
I mean, that sounds so therapist-y. Thank you for sharing that with me. That was really important. But yet at the same, doesn't it sound like I'm a therapist? Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. It feels like it's an important thing in your life. No, don't say it like that. Okay, so a friend of mine gave me some really bad news about himself health-wise. And it was over the phone, and he was just distraught. And I said, thank you for calling me and bringing me into the circle of this. This is big. This is really big. But and that's how I felt when you call me with very scary or vulnerable things, I'm honored. You chose me. So the people I talked to last night, I chose them to share something scary and vulnerable. So if somebody shares something like that with you, they're choosing you, because if you think about it, who you share stuff with, you already kind of have an expectation of what type of response you're going to get or what type of advice you're going to get.
Right.
So if somebody chooses me, that's on a big, anyway, I'm just repeating myself now, but
it is, and one of, for example, with me personally, I don't talk about it that much, but I have long COVID, and that there was something that happened when I had COVID that I'm still experiencing difficulties from. And it was very, very difficult for me to be very vulnerable with that Jacki. And I was only vulnerable with a couple of people, because for me to be in a place that's vulnerable is horrifying to me. So having to open up and share, because, it's easier for me Jacki, to say, oh, you know what? The world is going wonderful and I'm so happy and everything is going perfect. And, I'm just doing my work and, everything is wonderful with my books and my cats and my husband.
Right.
And for me to say, look, this is really terrifying to me, is a vulnerability. And I notice that when I am feeling vulnerable, I get very triggered.
Yeah.
About everything.
Especially, when you're an employer. So for folks that work for small businesses or maybe other small business owners. So when you work for a small business and your employer has to give you some bad news about business or something that's happening about business, know that that employer has internalized it 7 times before they ever brought it to you.
Right.
So when you get mad at them, like, anyway, that's a trigger right there. Did I just share a trigger? Huh.
Yeah. The other thing I think, Jacki, that we need to do while Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius is because Sagittarius loves the big picture. It doesn't like the little tiny box of the now. It likes the big picture. The now is irrelevant to Sagittarius. The now is just something boring and ridiculous, and, it's going to change anyway. So why should I be focused on that? And I think that one of the things that we can do is to relook at what our big picture is. And maybe do one of those, what is my plan for the next year? To reanalyze that. Mercury retrograde likes words with RE. Reanalyze, rethink, recalibrate how it is that we're going to move forward. And I would say that no matter what state that we were in, as a country or our personal lives, and if we had, trees in our backyard where we could go out and pick $20 bills off. That was during the Clinton administration. But, it would still be rethinking what our particular goals are regardless.
Yeah. The review is really important. And reaffirm.
Mm-hmm.
I think reaffirm is that, okay, I'm going through where I'm going, and I still believe in that. I still like that future vision. So reaffirming it if you want, but redoing it. I mean, all the re's. I think this Mercury in retrograde in Sagittarius is an amazing opportunity to review where you think you're going. I mean, so let's take everything that's changed in the last couple of weeks. It's time to say, oh, if people say, if this person wins, I'm going to go here. If this person wins, I'm going to go there. And now it's time to sit down and say, okay, this person won. Am I giving up the vision I had if the other person had won? Or am I reaffirming it or redoing it or reassessing it to a different thing?
Right.
This is Band-Aid ripping time. You just got to rip off the Band-Aid and see what's under the surface.
Right.
It's really crucial to do that because we all have different motivations, right?
Absolutely.
So this is a great opportunity. It had to be done regardless. So Mercury is going to be retrograde in Sagittarius regardless. So this is a great time to then say, okay, is this still where I want to go? Is this still what I want to do? And you may find that you change your ideal drastically.
Right.
Because that future, that point in the future doesn't feel like you anymore.
It is. And the other thing that I want people to know is that if they have any questions or they have any concerns or that they want, the two of us to answer something or to pontificate on something, it may not be right. What we may pontificate on may be just total crazy. But if you leave comments, our person that handles our particular accounts will give those to us.
Right.
Jacki and I don't read them for a reason, but put that in there. Or if you're having a problem, let us know that you're having a problem because we would love to address that for you. The other thing here is, and of course, it's my very first, actually, it's not, I did a tarot line with Coventry many, many years ago. It was a limited edition line. But then after that, Jacki and I created the Mercury Retrograde Neutralizer candle. And it's thanks to that candle that we have the Astro Magic line. So let's talk about the Mercury Retrograde Neutralizer candle. What does it do?
It does that. It neutralizes Mercury retrograde. Okay, so we came up with this Mercury Retrograde Neutralizer candle, which is not easy to say. And we started talking about how when things are, I look at Mercury retrograde as a constant static on your TV. Like back in the days when you had like the antennas, you just have to keep.
You mean those wire hangers that we had?
But now it's like your cable connection is not quite right. Or like your buffering, your show is buffering, and
right.
It goes. That's Mercury retrograde. So things are not quite right. The paper is crumpled up. And we started talking about that, and I don't know the exact order of things, but I had been given from a Hindu temple. Somebody wrote out the Mercury retrograde mantra for me in Sanskrit. So they just said, go, just scan it with your finger. I forget how many times. I have it written on that piece of paper. So I have that up on my wall. And we started talking about that. And you started talking about, well, yeah, you can smooth out that energy for yourself because it helps. So what we figured out is that it helps you change your vibration to be in alignment with that retrograde vibration. So when you have two different vibrations going on, because Mercury retrograde is not necessarily a bad thing. It
Right.
just feels really bad when you're not synced up with it. Now, like, think about the people who were born during a Mercury retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
Their life is like golden when Mercury is retrograde.
Yeah,
So we
because they
started,
feel as though that everything is in sync.
right.
Things are finally in sync for them.
So you and I talked about that, and we're like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. So that's how the Mercury retrograde neutralizer works. The MRX, it's called the MRX candle, because it helps shift your vibration so that you can pull from the retrograde what you need.
That, and also, it aids in calming down communication. It helps you to think a little bit more clear. It actually helps you ground a little bit. So, it's definitely, I recommend people burn 3 of them during Mercury retrograde seasons because of the fact that it just helps to mitigate is probably the better word, the difficult parts. Now, one more thing that I want to add is that if your life is going through hell during Mercury retrograde, it's Mercury sending you a signal that you need to course correct.
Yes.
So even if it is, you go to the airport and your luggage gets lost, or, you lose a ring, or because people lose things a lot during Mercury retrograde, or, you're having an argument with a friend of yours that you normally don't argue with, and everything is just going hell to a handbasket during Mercury retrograde. The last Mercury retrograde, I ended up having my car hit. I've never been in a wreck ever. And I've still never been in a wreck, but my car got messed up at the gas station.
So
And
crazy.
Mercury was retrograde at the time. So I was like, okay, Mercury, what do I need to do here? What do I need to look at?
I have a question for you, Storm.
Sure.
Is Mercury retrograde about the same time every year?
No, it floats because it retrogrades in different signs all of the time.
Okay.
Right now, it seems to like fire signs a lot, but it changes. So, I mean, you'll have one 4 times a year, 3 to 4 times a year. Okay, so like right now, we will have one. We won't have another one until spring. So there's usually one that falls in every season, give or take.
Understood.
But it's also because it goes retrograde the most out of any of the planets. And if you think about it, what do we all have to do? We all need to think and make decisions on a day-to-day basis, and we all need periods of time in which we need to look at whether we made the right decision. So Mercury retrograde has an absolute purpose. It's the Prometheus Epimetheus thing. Prometheus wants to look at the future and progress. Epithemius wants to look at the past. So it is kind of juggling those particular types of energies. The other thing, that will help to aid people, in addition to the Mercury retrograde neutralizer candle, Amazonite for truth, because you may need to see the truth during a Mercury retrograde. Blue lace agate for gentle communication. In other words, so that your words are a little bit more peaceful. And smoky quartz, of course, for grounding.
I like that combo. I love Amazonite, because it's a
Amazonite.
Why is it? Because it's
Amazonite.
Amazonite, but it's amazing.
Think Wonder Woman.
But I always I call it Amazonite. It's because it's amazing.
Yeah.
But blue lace agate, if you ever hold one, it just goes right. It really does. You hold some blue lace agate, and it's very prevalent. So just go grab your blue lace agate. It goes and calms you down.
Exactly.
But Amazonite, it reminds you for truth, yes, and it also reminds you of your strength, your confidence, how your Amazon energy comes out.
Exactly. Now, one of the things the last thing that I want to talk about here, Jackie, is how can we use Mercury retrograde for personal growth? Okay. And that this is kind of like helping people to look at those big picture perspectives. So you've got your candles, you've got your stones.
Yeah.
What is one of the things that you think that people can do to get away from the antagonistic energies of Mercury retrograde, especially one in Sagittarius?
So literally what I do, so to get to that place of open-mindedness, so you can understand the bigger picture, or because that's Sagittarius wants the bigger picture, but also understand what the truth is of the person say on the other side of the conversation. Because
Right.
we all have our truths. We all have our, just remember that the experiences of the person on the other side of the conversation is informing the conversation for them. It's saying, oh, well, because I've had this experience, I went and found this truth that supports that experience. So if you can, so when that, and it's just like, you left the fridge open all the time, that kind of thing. So they've had enough experiences that support that. Practicing open-mindedness, practicing that whole thing is to be curious. Well, tell me why that's important to you. Tell me why that you feel that I always leave it open, even though in your head you're like, please, I do not leave it open all the time.
Right.
So it's curiosity creates an open mind.
Yeah, because I mean, it may be as simple as, the reason why I'm accidentally leaving the fridge open is because I'm in such a rush to get to do what I need to do. And then that way you can come back and say, why are you feeling like in such a rush? Is there anything I can do to help you?
Exactly.
That helps to open up those lines of communication in a productive, proactive way rather than an antagonistic way.
In a practical example, last week, you and I were talking about how we felt, how we were feeling physically, what was going on in our lives. And because we said, okay, we both had agendas. And then in our conversation, we went, okay, this is what's going on. So we were curious. Tell me why you're feeling this way.
Right.
Tell me more about this.
And when you're caught up in that emotional moment, oftentimes, and this is, one of the things about having a great friend like Jacki is that a friend or somebody that you can rely on or somebody that you have confidence in, you can sit and say the craziest stuff to. Because I will tell you, last week I was retiring. I didn't care anymore. I didn't want to write any more blogs. I didn't want to do anything. Why should I do things to help people when they don't seem to want to help themselves? I was in this whole mental space. Okay.
Last week I was selling Coventry. I was going to go work for the man. Yeah. And then I remembered. I love what I do.
And then you get back to a sense of center. But I think that what people need to recognize is that oftentimes your first emotional gut instinct to something is just your psyche saying something is wrong here. Something needs to be recalibrated. Something's Mercury retrograded. And now you're needing to kind of go through this particular process to rebuild what your ideas and beliefs are in regards to the future.
Exactly.
So Jacki, we're done. So I hope everybody, make sure that you run out and get all your Mercury retrograde neutralizer candles. We have them in stock. They're ready. They're able. We'll send them out to you to get them.
And remember to send us your questions.
Right. Send us your questions.
You can, wherever you're listening to the show, there's a way to send questions back to us through Podbean. There's ways to reach us out in social media, because you can find Curse Breakers on Facebook, I think
Instagram.
Those are the two. We're working on the next, but Facebook and Instagram, you can ask us questions there.
And they can find you where, Jacki?
You can find me anywhere there's Coventry Candles or Coventry Creations on all of the socials. And then if you want to look for Jacki Smith official author, you might find me there too.
Right.
But there's a lot of Jacki Smiths out there, so careful.
Good thing there's only one me. So you can find me at Storm Sestavani everywhere except Facebook. I'm facebook.com/astrogossip, because I like to talk about astrology. So cruise on over there. This show, of course, is sponsored by CoventryCreations.com. If you have a problem in your life, regardless of what that problem is, we definitely have a candle for that. So make sure that you check that out. And Jacki, what should they do until the next show?
Keep it magic, my friends.
Speak life, everybody. Have a happy Mercury retrograde season.